Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here. Happy to be here and have this conversation. It's also kind of what I find to be my life's work is sharing this
Hmm.
message.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
I'm going to start. I'm going to ask Nisha some questions. We're going to have a little chat, and if you guys want to put some stuff into the chat on the side, we'll keep an eye out for that as well. Um, but given that we're in the middle of Thanksgiving weekend, you made a powerful decision this year um, to spend Thanksgiving solo, which I find absolutely intriguing. It's counter to everything that we've heard in our society. You know, you get together with the weird uncle and whatnot. And whoever is not muted, please mute yourself. I think you're talking, Lori. Let me mute. There you go. You made the powerful choice to spend the Thanksgiving solo this year, and I want to know why and in what way that was you not settling and getting what you want.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I say don't settle for societal norms. A year ago, I was sitting at home and was about to go into radiation treatment for breast cancer for
Mhm.
the entire month of December. And so, number one, looking back and reflecting on that moment, which was huge for me, and seeing myself on the other side, number one, I wanted to celebrate that with myself. And number two, this is not super popular, but home is not always a safe space. And it might be in different times of your life. And in this moment, prior to getting a breast cancer diagnosis, my baby sister, who was 45, died suddenly of a heart attack. And so um, my parents didn't want to celebrate, and rightfully so, rightfully so. And I thought to myself, you know, I love them and I can honor them from here where I am solo celebrating and still create joy for myself and still celebrate myself for myself. And so I did that. And I went to a buffet at a five-star resort by myself at a solo table. And I just sat with me. And it was amazing. It was amazing. And I think first, if we learn to love ourselves and enjoy our own company, that is a place to start and not settling.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. How did your family take it?
They were fine. I said, look, I am in a place in my life after what has happened. I want to create joy. I want to grieve on my own. I want to grieve my sister on my own. I want to um, do things. Life is short. We have this one short, precious life. And I don't want to sit in sadness. I don't want to fake it. I
Mhm.
don't want to do the emotional labor of anyone else. That includes my
Mhm.
parents, that includes other family members. I just want to have joy in whatever way that is.
Are they sitting in sorrow and
Not necessarily sorrow, but it would have been it would have been difficult because my sister lived right behind them and I would have had a reminder of like, here's her house.
Mhm.
She's not there anymore. She
Mhm.
hosted every Thanksgiving for 15 years and they celebrated their way and I
Mhm.
did it my way.
Got it. No, so
Right?
the reason that I'm asking is like I can even like it's a classic thing of the holidays. Like they make movies and jokes and everything about it. You know, it's like, you have to go and hang out. I had a fabulous family. We always enjoyed getting together. But it's like my daughter back in the US, she's like, "Oh, is this uncle gonna be there at the thing? Because I don't know if I want to see him, and everything." But
Well,
but what are the things that everybody does, and just I think it's extraordinary to give yourself permission to not do that, you know.
yeah,
Um,
we force ourselves to be in this family dynamic and it's not always wonderful. I think I hear more people upset about it than they are happy. And I'm like, wait a minute, the holidays are supposed to be about joy.
mhm,
So how can we
mhm,
create that for ourselves, even
mhm.
if we're forced to be with this family dysfunction? How can you still make it joyful for yourself?
Got it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask all kinds of personal questions, and I don't
Go
think
for
you
it.
mind. Okay. So, what are some of the other ways that you give yourself permission? And if I can ask you to think of one where it was not easy to give yourself permission.
Ooh,
Like,
okay. This is a
well,
good
the
one.
reason that I'm asking, I know you can think in the background,
Yeah.
because a lot of people, like just saying, oh, yeah, I can give myself permission and everything went great. It doesn't always go great, and the reason that people don't, I think, giving yourself permission is something that we don't necessarily know is ours to give. We don't necessarily know we're waiting for it. One of the phrases that I've heard you use is uh, instead of waiting to be chosen, just go ahead and choose. Like, what are the places where, the experience of giving yourself permission to do something that's difficult? Do you
So
know what I
I'm gonna
mean?
pick two things. Yeah, I'm gonna pick two things. The first one, I actually have a whole chapter in my book about this because it was really something of depth that really needed to be discussed, especially culturally. I left. I left. I left a religion. I left Hinduism, which my parents are devout Hindus. I'm Indian, and I left an entire religion and my ancestors and my birthright to basically go to another religion, to follow Jesus, to be Christian. And I did this 6 years ago. So I did this pretty late into my adulthood. And it was probably the scariest thing I ever did. But I found a calling to a specific, you know, religion or to really, I don't like the word religion, but like spirituality. I found a calling to the spirituality and I couldn't deny it anymore. So that was really scary to
How
come
did you
out and say, well, I announced it
how
on
did you
Facebook.
come out? How did you do that? Like, what's the meat and
I announced it on
potatoes?
Facebook and I said, "Hey, everybody, I am now following Jesus," and I was expecting a lot of backlash. I had told my parents ahead of time, and they did not take it well at that time. This was 7 years ago ish, and they did not take it well. But now they do. But like it was the most amazing decision I ever made because sometimes we are forced into our family's religion, our cultural religion, or whatever it is, whatever the
Mhm.
spirituality bucket is. And that's not who we necessarily want to be or who we are. And it was the best decision of my life. It was the best decision of my life. So that was number one. Number two was deciding that I was going to travel internationally to Paris by myself. I know you have a
Mhm.
whole group about women solo
Mhm.
travelers. And a lot of people were like, "Whoa, what? You're gonna do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why wouldn't I? Why would I be waiting for a man, another friend, anybody to go with me?" And so it was difficult because I felt like, "Ooh, should I be doing this?" Because people are saying I shouldn't be doing this. Like, "Oh,
Mhm.
they're looking at me like I have three heads, right?" And again, another amazing decision I made.
So the social thing, because I want to get in the nitty gritty. I do want to get in the nitty. So I'm gonna take a moment and just say, like the work that I do. I help people, rediscover, like look in the mirror, look deep in a mirror and see yourself plainly. It's like finding your authentic self. And as La Frenchies, this is one of the things that we hear more often than anything else. You're exactly the same in person as you are on the screen. And, it's so authentic and whatnot. It's because like we say what we mean and we mean what we say, right? And it's a
Right,
lot easier to do that when you can look in the mirror and just see yourself as plain as day. And so if I'm looking in the mirror and I'm seeing like, who I am as somebody who is confident to travel alone to France, right? Like what you were saying, we still question ourselves. Like you still question yourself because that whole public opinion, like we've spent decades getting to the point where, we still want approval. We still, we have the self-doubt that says, was I crazy to do that? Because I remember the first time I went traveling alone, I got on an airplane. I flew to Quito, Ecuador. I was going into the selva, into the wilderness, to a resort that I found out about. And I was on the airplane thinking, this is the dumbest thing you've ever done. But by God, you're going to go and enjoy your stupidity. And you know, because everybody, like to your point, everybody's like, "Are you okay? You're going to be safe." Like, all of this
Right. And I bet
worry.
you came out as one of the most amazing experiences of your life.
I I met myself in ways I don't think I could have met
Yeah.
myself otherwise.
Yeah.
Because there's the big question, when you're alone, do you like the company that you keep?
Right.
And it wasn't always true that I did. Like
Fair. Yeah.
I could
Same.
sit alone and you know go through all the tapes in my head about everything that was wrong, everything I was supposed to be doing, like all of that kind of stuff. But I think it's so important to face those bears, and
Well,
so.
right. And also the parts of ourselves that we don't like or the parts of ourselves that we're avoiding. Um, Sometimes we are just even avoiding sitting in sorrow or grief or
Mhm.
regret or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think the first place to start in a don't settle mindset or movement for yourself is, do you love yourself? Can you spend time with yourself?
Mhm.
That's where I think it starts. You've got to love yourself above everything and not in a selfish way, or a
But what do you
narcissistic
say to
way.
people? What do you say to people who say, "Yeah, I do love myself"?
And then I would follow that up with, what are you doing to honor yourself? Are there parts of your life
Mhm.
where you're still trying to people please? You're still trying
Mhm.
to get approval.
Mhm.
You still have FOMO. If those things exist, then I would challenge that
Got
statement.
it. Yeah, the way that I wrote, like in the clarity course, we go through, you know, who you are that you're used to saying you are. Like, how do you like introduce yourself to the world? How do people know you? And then how do you react with who you're expected to be and what you're supposed to be doing and stuff so that we can confront those things and come back with, like, is that really who I am and what I want? Right. So once you get back and, there's a whole process, obviously, but when you get to like, this is who I really am, then that's when you go out and tell the world who you are. And
Right.
it's a very simple a simple phrase. But when people say I'm self-expressed, who is the self that's being expressed, right?
Mm,
So are
yeah.
you actually being self-expressed? Are you being, mood expressed or what I feel like saying expressed, because I don't know if we can truly be self-expressed until we know the self. Um, so this is why, like it's so important to really get that piece. And so when you're going out there with the confidence to do the kinds of things you're talking about, like, change your religion, jump on a plane, like tell them sorry, I'm not coming over. I want to do it my way or whatever. It's like if you have that sense of self that can be expressed, it's a lot easier to do that.
Yeah, and not, I'm also in my 50s, so it's like I got to a point in my life where I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care if you don't like what I said on social media.
Mhm.
I don't care. And so that took a long time to get there, right? Like I wasn't like that in my 20s or 30s, and maybe even
Mhm.
partially, you know what I mean? It took me a
Mhm.
long time to get there. And like you have to get to a point where like if you are self-expressing, you have to realize you're going to have people that are not going to like what you say or how you self-express
Mhm.
necessarily, right? The
Mhm.
haters, whatever you want to call them. I've
Mhm.
lost family members, I've lost friends, and I'm okay with that because in that void or in that place, my people have come in. And something
Right.
greater is I have found myself.
You
And if
found
you
your
can,
tribe.
right? If I found my true self. So,
Yeah.
and I have peace. And peace is what we're all after.
How would you mark the difference between being comfortable and settling?
That's a great question. So I think people who are comfortable, well, if you're comfortable, I think that, and this is my opinion. So, but this is what I see from my experience, in my own experience. If you are comfortable, then are you really pushing yourself to grow, to be the best version of yourself. Um, are you still doing XYZ to please everyone else, to please a cultural norm, to please your parents, to please your, community? You know, not settling is being bold and brave and saying, you know what? I don't really want to show up at Christmas this year. I want to go do this. Or to say, I don't want to be a doctor. That's not really what I wanted. I really want to go be an artist. And so you have to ruffle feathers. You have to ruffle feathers if you decide you're not going to settle. There's no such thing as not settling and, not ruffling feathers. They go together.
I completely get that. And it's funny because I'm sitting here in this conversation thinking the reason you and I get along so well together is we both love questioning everything. Um,
Yeah,
the the thought that I have about between settling and being comfortable, I think that it boils down to what kind of comfortable you're talking about. Like there's a difference between
fair.
being comfortable with the way things are, like don't rock the boat comfortable, is
Yeah.
very different than being comfortable in your own skin. And I think that that's the gap. Like if you're sitting around being comfortable in your own skin and, there's a certain amount of fear that goes with that. And that's what's, I think, speaking to the boldness you're talking about, and ruffling the feathers or, muddying up the water and stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
getting through that fear
yeah,
barrier. Yeah.
yeah. And I have to say, it's not for everyone. Like there are people who
No,
will live all of their days and never ruffle those feathers. And there's nothing wrong with that. You
no.
know, you just have to acknowledge that's what you're doing. People can live an entire life settling for something that's pretty darn good. It's not my choice, and I'm guessing the people that are here on the call, it's probably not the choice for this group. But I think the difference is if you're seeking a way to be comfortable in your own skin, then it gives you the impetus to not settle.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, great distinction, right? Being comfortable in your own skin versus being comfortable in life. I made a decision a long time ago, and I feel like actually even Oprah had said this about her own self. But when I was a kid, I knew that I wanted greatness. I don't know what that looked
Mhm.
like, but I was born in East Tennessee, population 12,000. And I was like, man, there's got to be more. There's got to be more in life, right? Having such a close brush to death, watching my younger sibling pass and then me getting cancer, I realized, whoa, I'm going to catapult into this thing because we have one life. We have one.
Mhm.
There are people I know, including my ex-husband, who who was happy. Like he's lived the same life, the same job, the same clothes, the same furniture, the same house for his whole life, right? Like he's good with that. He's comfortable. I
Yeah.
didn't want to be comfortable. I wanted to push myself into every possible way to have this great and not just have a great life, but to be impactful in this world. And that's what I wanted. And like to your point, the people that don't want that, it's okay. It's
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. 100%. I'm going to take a minute and check these messages. Hello, Patricia, and your own company and doing what you want. I love that. Love that. Saying hello. Got it. Fellow Tennessee folks.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Um, I want to know, well, we talked a little bit about the courage for putting yourself first. How does that translate into, I don't know, romance, business, other areas of life? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, great question. I feel like I'm more of a failure in my personal life than my business life because this don't settle attitude that I have almost is um creating this ideal romantic partner that may not exist. And so I'm still single, right?
Mhm.
But you know, I got married and then I got divorced and then I dated and I realized like if I was going to go through the pain of divorce and having a child and all of that, then why would I settle ever again in my romantic world? I had spent years feeling half a woman
Hmm.
of being divorced. Part of that was cultural. Part of that again is societal norm, like, oh, you're divorced, right? And it forced me to or caused me to feel undeserving internally, even if it was subconsciously, of meeting a good man. So I was picking men that were less than. I was picking them, I was choosing them, even subconsciously, because I didn't think I deserved anything better. And now after I've done the work, I can look back and say, oh, you did that. You chose that
Hmm.
because you didn't feel like you deserved better. And now that I've done the work, I'm on the other side and I'm like, all right, I'm never settling again. And that could be positive or negative, right? I could possibly never find this ideal partner, but I'm okay with that because I'm okay with if I'm to be alone the rest of my life, I'm okay with that. I had to get to a point where I was okay with that. Business wise, I walked out of a boss 14 years ago to start my business, Pi CPA, which is an accounting firm. I walked out on a boss, kind of like a Jerry Maguire move, where he said to me, basically told me I had a mom gap in my resume, which was time I took off to raise my son,
Hmm.
and said to me, "You don't deserve this raise that you're asking for. You are not near your peers, and I'm not giving you this raise." And something came over me, and I quit on the spot. I took my one big client and I walked out that day. And here I am 14 years later with a successful firm.
Hmm.
But I took a chance on myself. And I think that we have to believe so deeply in ourselves. We have to believe so deeply in ourselves that we will not let anything get past that, right? So whether it's walking out on a boss, a bad relationship, a bad friendship,
Hmm.
whatever, it's about believing in ourselves.
When you walked out of that job, did you have the confidence? Did you like,
I
how did
didn't.
you?
I
Yeah,
didn't.
I
I was
was gonna
like,
say, because, we don't,
I'm like, what the hell did you just do? Right? I'm like, what the hell did you just do? And I'm walking to my car and I'm calling my one big client. I said, oh my God, I just quit my job. I don't know where I'm going. I don't even know what I'm doing. And they're like, well, we'll go with you. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. And so I said, well, okay, if they're going to come with me, maybe I'll start my own thing. I had no idea how to be an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
I knew accounting. Like if you know finances, that's like half the battle. Like
Mhm.
I knew accounting, but I didn't know how to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know how to own a business and
Right.
do the marketing and website and all that stuff. But you figure it out along the way.
Yep. I'm looking over here. Pamela says the fake it till you make it. This one, I'm sorry, Pamela, this one irks me no end, because when you're faking it, you feel like the imposter. And like I have worked with, a bunch of people who are dealing with imposter syndrome. And I get why people say it. Like I love the spirit that you said that, Pamela. But to put that back into Nisha's words, it's like, I'll figure it out, is a little twist on the fake it till you make it. It's like, I'm not pretending anything. I'm standing here saying, I know what I want. I know what I'm committed to. And by God, I will figure out how to make it work, is very different than going out in the world and pretending that you already know. Like I don't want anybody, and whether it's work or money, and finances, whether it's travel, whether it's, anything that you're dealing with, please don't fake it. Please don't fake it. Because there is something in your soul. It's like when you lie to your brain knows you're lying. And so like one of the ways that I've come to deal with that. It's like, up until this moment, I didn't know anything about that, but this is a new moment. Like I used to say yes to things I didn't want to say yes to. I don't do that anymore. Because if I
Mm,
tell my mind, like, oh, I don't agree to do things I don't want to do, my brain is automatically saying, yeah, you do. You've done it for years,
hmm
you know? Um, and you will sabotage yourself. Like you will sabotage yourself. So I want to just flip that just a little bit. And I'm not picking on you, Pamela. You typed it. I had to go there. And I know that you can take it. Yeah, talk to your mind with respect, and as you're talking to your mind with respect, your mind will talk back to you with respect. Your mind will help you get what you need and go where you need to go. Because this is how we teach ourselves who we are and how we teach others who we are, and I think that, for me is one of the biggest lessons in not settling. Is like knowing who you are, knowing what you want,
Yeah.
and not being afraid to say, this is what I want.
Well, and I also think, Colleen, that the opportunity presents itself to you, and that means the universe thinks you're ready for it. So
Yeah.
rise up to that, right? Like
Yeah.
rise up to it because this opportunity is here and it's not by
Mhm.
accident.
Right.
So you'll figure it out. Everyone else figures it out.
Yeah. And and in that same vein, if you aren't ready, the opportunity may be presenting itself and you're not seeing it. Like the fact that
Mm,
you see it and recognize it says that you're ready.
yeah.
Like
Yeah, that's good.
there's a line that says, you wouldn't have a desire that you couldn't deliver on. You may have a desire that you choose not to deliver on, but you wouldn't have it if you couldn't deliver on it,
Right. That's
you
good.
know? And then if you're telling your mind, it's like, like, oh yeah, I could charge that much, no problem. If your mind doesn't believe it, it will come back just like the fake it till you make it stuff. Like your mind will come back and say, oh no, you're only worth this.
Hmm.
And neither side is true because it's the perceptive piece, the perception, that's going to rule the day anyway. Like the difference between, I had a neighbor who was a fabulous artist in Florida. I mean, just the work he did was extraordinary. And he sold his art for next to nothing. Like here's $50 for this sculpture. And I'm like, the difference between what you're doing here and the people in Art Basel that are selling something that's not that good for, 5,000 or 50,000, like what's the difference? It's the
Hmm.
confidence of the artist, not the arrogance of the artist, the confidence of the
Yeah.
artist. And it's so important to find those ways to relate to yourself in the terms of deserving, and all of that, like the deeper levels of self-awareness that go with it, it just matters so much.
Yeah. I mean, it works in personal relationships, right? Hence why I was picking
Yeah,
people that, you know,
yeah. Water seeks its level.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's, in the relationship thing, it's like, um, if I need to rescue someone, I will always look for people who need to be rescued.
Right.
If I need to care for someone, I will always look for people who need to be cared for.
Hmm.
Right?
Right.
And the minute that I say, what I need is an equal partner, you'll start finding equal partners. This
Right.
might be your next big year, my darling.
Equal partner mode. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Does anybody in there have a question that you want us to touch on? You can just drop it into the comments, put it in the chat box, and we'll come in and look at that. Uh, Another thing that we were talking about, um, is how many, and we speak to women of a certain age in the population and the female traveler group and whatnot. How many people get to the point in life where they just don't remember what they want? Like, how do you go after getting what you want and not settling when you don't remember? Like if you can't really connect to what you're passionate about and what you want. How do you
ooh.
come over that comfort level?
Well, that's a great one. And there are also women in our age group who their primary, goal or whatever was to raise a family, right?
Hmm.
So their entire mode was mom or wife, and then they're empty nesters. And I run into a lot of women who are in this place in life where their kids
Hmm.
are gone, and they're like, "Oh my God, who am I? I don't even know what I like. I don't even know
Hmm.
who I am." And I'll say to them, what did you love or like before that? Who were you before that phase? Did you like to knit? Did you like to go to the movies? Did you like to, jazzercise? Whatever it is, go back to that person, that woman, where you were an individual, even as a child. What were the things that brought you joy? Like what brought you joy? And try to tap into that. because so many women, they're clouded in this time frame. And I'm like, go back, spend time in nature, spend time with yourself,
Mhm.
journal, whatever it is, and go figure out, tap into what brought you joy before you were that person where you felt lost or felt like, and this is a lot of empty nester women.
There are a lot of emptiness.
Yeah.
There's, to your points, like empty nest, retirement, um, diagnosis, friends or family with diagnosis, parenting the parents. Like there's
Yeah.
so many, like downsizing to a different
The
home,
sandwich generation,
all of it. Yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot of shifting identities in the middle of all of that. Absolutely. Um, and the relationships that shift, not just spousal or romantic relationships or parenting relationships. So many people are in jobs where their social circles have belong to the job, like the coworker world or colleague
Right.
world. And then you go to retire, and what happens to your friendships when you don't have that in common anymore? So
Right.
like there's
Right.
a lot of different places, and if you're sitting trying to figure out who you are, you know, I'm of the mind that solo travel is a great way to find out who you are.
Oh, amazing.
Um, but
Amazing. Yeah.
if you're not at the level where you're ready to do that, like sitting alone in a restaurant, not like grab food and go kind of sitting in a restaurant, but dining, like sitting, relaxing, and enjoying a meal like courses or something, sitting alone in a restaurant like that and noticing what catches your eye around the room. Who
Mm,
catches your eye around the room? Where's the
yeah.
deliciousness in that meal, whether it's food related or not? Like
Yeah,
to,
interesting that you say that, because I'm a massive foodie,
Mhm,
and I forced myself on my first spring trip to Paris to go to a Michelin star restaurant to eat
mhm,
alone. I was like,
mhm,
I love food so much that I was
mhm,
like, I wasn't going to wait for someone to go to this restaurant.
mhm,
And I did it. And the first time I did it, it was like a high. I was like, wow, this is amazing. A, they treated me special,
mhm,
right? And it wasn't like I was some invalid that walked in that was like, oh, you're not with a date, like you're not with a
mhm,
man.
mhm,
And I loved it. And I
mhm,
did just that. I savored my food and I looked around. I loved the people watching. I love
mhm,
like just observing. And I became comfortable with that.
mhm,
And I think I would ask women to go. They don't have to go to a fine dining restaurant, right? You
mhm,
could go to sit at a bar at your local pub.
mhm.
But I really love that because I feel like in those moments is where we can find some of that joy and some of that
Yeah.
what we love to do.
Yeah, I think it's for me it's a great way to connect. I know, most people here probably know me as the Frenchies, and Antoine and I, we have an ongoing date for everything in public. But I do slip away and go into Paris alone, and I'm looking forward to doing that again.
Yeah.
But just to sit somewhere, and I notice very different things when I'm alone. And
Right.
I remember things about who I am when I'm sitting alone, particularly if I'm sitting alone around beauty. You mentioned nature and stuff, but like
Oh,
if you're
beauty.
sitting somewhere
Yeah.
near beauty, you start to look at the details it's like I was noticing buttons. I'm not in love with buttons. I'm not a seamstress, any of that. Um, but there was just little bits of that, and it took me back to a time when I wanted to make like a mixed media mosaic that had buttons in it. And so like remembering the artistic sides of me, and I don't know, I started painting again, but just because it doesn't matter what the thing is, like just being with different bits of beauty in the world, so that like maybe you go home and cook, maybe you go home and write, maybe you go home and read, maybe you go home and whatever, but like there are ways that just start to stir your soul that you just need to trust.
Yeah.
And
I think it turns the creative part of our brain on, right?
yeah.
As you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, there are, what's his name? there's a guy, he wrote a series of books, and he's not a particularly great writer. Um, it's The Peaceful Warrior, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. Um, but he has a whole section, his thoughts are so profound, that it was worth reading through the poor writing quality to get the message. I don't know if that makes sense. Um, but he was talking about the non-physical needs, like getting your non-physical needs met.
Mm.
And one of them for sure is being connected to beauty, whether you're creating it or appreciating it or whatever, that sense of beauty. And I think that as we go through life and we have our deep-rooted needs met, like where do they get met? How do they get met? And how do we communicate those onto other people? Like that's that self-worth and self-expression exchange. And I think that that's another way that we can help to stir the passions and the things that we love and what we want to do.
Yeah, that was beautiful, Colleen. Like I think also if we can figure ourselves out, we can teach other people, we could communicate to other people like, here's what we need from you. Like
Hmm.
here's who,
Yeah.
and it just creates this beautiful, you know,
Hmm.
harmony. I do want to say something to specifically the women in the group because I run into this a lot with women in our age group that I hear a lot of women say, "Oh, I'm too old.
Mm.
Oh, it's too late,"
Hmm.
or anything around that. And I hate that because I look at you, I look at me, I look at several other women in the
Hmm.
world that I know and admire who have reinvented themselves a million times. I started my accounting firm at 40 years old.
Hmm.
I
I
started my
started a
speaking.
YouTube channel in my upper 50s. I'm go
Yeah,
boomer.
exactly. I started my speaking business at 50. I feel like women need to shed that mentality.
Hmm.
I don't know if men
I,
do that. I don't know. I don't know if men are can say in the chat if they find this, but like that bothers me.
I don't know. I don't know if we have guys in here. I know Jennifer and John, but I don't know if John is with Jennifer. Um, I don't know if they do or don't. I
Mm,
want to, like, I know guys that do and guys that don't. Um, and I don't know that all women do. I think women have a tendency to be more grouped together that way, particularly in age and beauty and physiology as we age and don't feel beautiful and whatnot. Um, but yeah, I think it's a very valid thing, like the number of times that I've reinvented myself over my lifetime, it's phenomenal. And I was talking with Vincent, Antoine's brother, and he says, "Well, how did you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, I wanted to." And he says, "But you didn't go to school for that, like I didn't go to school for a lot of things. I went to school for what I went to school for." But there was a point where I had a lot of friends that were traveling nurses, and I wanted to be a traveling nurse because I wanted to go to Hawaii and work for 3 months, and then go to Chicago and work for 3 months, and then San Francisco and work for. That would just be so cool. So I went and got myself a job in the ER, thinking I'm going to go to nursing school. And of course, after a very short period of time, it's like, you know what? I just want to travel. I don't want to do the nursing part. Um, but it's like the mindset that I had at the time was, what do I have to do to get what I want?
mm,
And
yeah.
what am I willing to do for money so that I can get the lifestyle that I want? And funny
Mm,
enough, the next reinvention that I did, I invented myself as a meeting planner and literally got paid to travel around the world and got paid very well to travel around the world using my organizational skills without having to deal with nursing. So I mean,
yeah.
it was a stepping stone that got me where I wanted to go, but it's knowing what you want that opens the door to getting what you want, if that
And you
makes
hit a
sense.
really cool thing where you said, what do I have to do? What am I
Hmm.
willing to do? What do I have to do to get what I want? That is a very big
Yeah,
key factor.
yeah. It's an important one. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm multitasking here because I'm answering. Yes, that is Dan Millman, who was the peaceful warrior and wrote those wonderful books. If you're willing to go through it, it's a little bit rudimentary, but fascinating read. I recommend it. He was a brilliant guy. Um, yeah. So how do we get what we need? The number one step is knowing what we want. How do we get what we want? Number one is knowing what we want. Number two is, figuring out a little bit of logistics about it. But even more important than that is communicating with the people around us. Because another one of the things from the clarity course is how do we teach other people who we are,
Mm,
which is the same thing as self-expression. But we don't relate to self-expression in terms of teaching people who we are. We relate to self-expression as, saying what I want, dressing how I want, like whatever I want. Um, but if we're responsibly self-expressed, then what we're actually doing is teaching people who we are and how to communicate with us and where our boundaries are and all of the really important things that come in any single relationship that there is on the planet. And
yeah.
to have the people that love us and want us to succeed in life, if we give them the tools to know how to support us, they want to you know? It's like one of the things, like branching into this new adventure, Antoine loves me like crazy. Antoine would do anything for me. Antoine will tell me and back it up like, any way, any support you need, I'm here for you. Um, the problem comes when I don't know how to tell him what I want. He doesn't know how to support me until I teach him how to support me.
Right.
So that's the exercise for me is, learning how to communicate to the people around me that want to be there for me. Like, how do I teach them what I need, what I
Mm,
want? You know, and that also includes sharing your weaknesses, like those vulnerable things. It's
yeah.
like, I don't want to need you at all. I appreciate you willing to be there, but if I'm telling you that I need you, then I'm admitting that I'm vulnerable. And I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to be needy. I don't want to be weak. Like all of this whiny stuff. Um, but you can't get what you want if you're so busy making sure that you're not all of those negative things you think about yourself,
Mm,
you
yeah, that's
know?
good, Colleen. That's good. And, I have found in the things that I've wanted, whether it was speaking, my speaking journey, being a writer,
Hmm.
owning a firm, I also would seek out people who were doing those things. I would
Hmm.
seek out courses. I would seek out whatever
Hmm.
it was that would help me get that.
Hmm.
And I think that's important, right? I think
Yeah.
that's important, right?
Yeah.
And your clarity course, I'll put a plug in, right? Like if you want clarity, take Colleen's clarity course, right?
Thank you.
What do you want? Once you figure that out, go find the things that will help you get there, the people,
Yeah.
the courses, the
Yeah.
podcasts, the books, whatever it is.
Yep, that's modules 9 and 10. This is how you do the roadmap for sure. Like
Yeah.
how do you make that real once you find it? But
Yeah.
knowing how to find things makes no difference if you don't know what you're looking for from the
Mm-mm.
beginning,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
if, was it lipstick on a pig or whatever they say, it's like you just take whatever's there and just, put stuff on top of it. Um, it'll come out the same, it's kind of like dating the same guy in a different face because you're just still going after the same one.
That was me. That
Well,
was me. But
you're
also
not alone, by the way.
I paid attention to what was making my soul spark up
Hmm.
as I was going through my life. What was
Hmm.
making my soul spark up? Simply that.
You know how I say it because I'm me. What's putting the bubbles in the champagne?
Woo! Yeah.
What's putting the bubbles in my champagne? I want more of that.
Ooh, I like that. I like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think you have to pay attention to that. Like,
yeah.
if you just pay attention to that little thing, you will find, I feel like people will find,
Hmm.
they'll find that clarity. They'll find it.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. 100%. Everybody's so quiet. Nobody has any questions. We're just gonna keep chatting because I could talk all day with this poor woman. So, when it comes to settling, what would you say are the biggest pitfalls?
Oh gosh, you're asking all these great questions. I think the biggest pitfall, number one, is feeling like you're selfish,
Hmm.
feeling guilt or feeling selfishness. That is the biggest one. And sometimes and because culturally, Indian guilt is a thing, probably like Catholic
Catholic,
guilt, Jewish
Jewish,
guilt.
what, go
Yes, yes,
ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's go on. Um, Also a very generational thing.
Hmm.
That can be handed down from your parents. That is the biggest pitfall is feeling guilt or selfishness because if you have to reframe it and when stop yourself and say, wait a minute, they're not living my life, whoever you're guilty about or whatever you're guilty about. I'm living my life. How can I be the best version of me? How can I be the happiest version of me? We don't know when our time ends here. We don't know.
Mm-mm.
And in this one short, precious life, if you are settling, what are you here for? Right? What are you here for? So the biggest pitfall is feeling the guilt or the selfishness. That's got to go. That's got to go.
So what did you overcome? No, let me back that up, right? Um, because I think that inside of that guilt, I think that there's also self-worth, self-esteem, and deserving that are all tied into that guilt. And it's a real thing. Like I don't want to minimize it because so many people really struggle with it, and we struggle with it. We
Feeling
pretend we
deserving, you
don't.
mean feeling
Well,
deserving or feeling,
the
yeah.
guilt, I think that the guilt goes together, it's like, how dare I expect more,
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's like, I don't think that they're separate, is my point, so like
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
and it's something that's very deeply felt, and I think that it comes in sneaky ways. I think that a lot of people, have it and then one day realize like, oh my God, I have that. I didn't know I had that. You know what I mean? Like I think
Yeah.
I think it's just that sneaky. So I don't want to step over it.
No. I think I got to a place where I was tired. I was just tired. Enough was enough for me. And I think people have to maybe get to that place where they're just like, I'm just tired of fighting against whatever they're fighting against, right? And just I got to a point where I'm like, I need to live for myself because no one else. I need to take care of myself. I need to look after myself because I
Oh, we don't want that. Yeah.
Go ahead.
okay. Because I am the only person looking after me, right? And so I quickly had to, I did the same thing, Colleen, for years where I felt, like I wasn't deserving of, more, or I felt guilty because, I wasn't being the good Indian girl or whatever it was. And I got to a point where I just was so tired. I think we have to get to a point in our lives where like we're tired of fighting against what we truly want and what we know we deserve.
Yeah. It's like rock bottom, but you just got to the point where you had nothing left to lose if you went forward.
Patty's comment is interesting.
I want you to read that one.
Okay. Um, this is really good, Patty. A big stumbling block for me is that to have the life I want would result in truly hurting someone that I care for deeply. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Do you want to take that one or you want me to talk about it?
Well, I have something to say, but I want you to
Well,
take it first. Yeah.
part of what I'm asking, because it's like as we're going through this with you, it's like you got to the point where I don't care, I'm just going for it. And that's not the reality for a lot of people.
Hmm.
Like a lot of people are exactly in this position.
Yep.
And there was a friend of mine back in Florida who had been married for 35 years and was having trouble with the husband. And most of her friends were saying, leave him. And she came to talk to me, and the conversation had a lot to do with, yeah, I have all of these dreams for where I want to take my life. I've taken care of him. I did all of that stuff, and I'm here in this position where I can't have my life unless I leave him. And, if you tell me the same that everybody else told me, then I'm just going to go file today for divorce. Um, I'm not a big fan of divorce. I think that if it's the right thing to do, 100%, I back it. But, um, I believe in if you give your word, then there's something to that. So we talked a lot over the next 3 days. And I challenged her to do some different, I don't want to say tests, but, like to test herself in some different ways around that relationship. And she came back and she didn't divorce him. They are blissfully married right now. They got over that bump. And the reason that they got over that bump is because they got to the place where they could communicate not from the hurt, not from the
Mhm.
desire, not from being trapped or victimized or like from the wounds, because you can't get to where you want to get if you're relating to the wounds. And if you're
Mhm.
relating to the wounds, it's like nobody wants to admit that they feel victimized, and sometimes we do, but like if you're coming from a position of stuck, it is it could be um, a victim position, but that means that they've done something to you. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm stuck because I don't want to hurt this person. Um, I don't think that you want to hurt him at all. Or I'm saying him, that whoever that someone is, I don't think that you want to hurt them. I think that what's really there behind all of that is the respect for what it is that you want and need, and a respect and love for that person. And if you can have a conversation from that level of respect, you can arrive at something that nobody even knows today what that is.
Mhm.
And, and I think I'm not a therapist. You guys know this, right? But
But yeah, I mean, well said, Colleen, for sure. It's having a conversation.
there's something behind
Yeah.
that. And it's not as simple as I can't get what I want because it would hurt someone I love. That's a surface conversation that deserves to go down a bunch of different levels.
I will also add, Colleen, that my choices have not let have I'm gonna make this a double negative, have not left collateral damage in the
Mm-hmm.
wake, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a strained relationship with my parents. I
Mm-hmm.
have a strained relationship for my son because I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that he at 26 forgives me yet for the divorce when he was
Mm-hmm.
6.
Mm-hmm.
Um, am I happier in my life from the choices I've made? 1000%. Did
Mm-hmm.
it come without pain and
No,
suffering? Absolutely not.
no.
Absolutely not.
And and And, like I'm not an Indian woman. I didn't grow up in your culture. But I do have, family background where people have opinion. Like there are a lot of strong opinions in our family. And
I was like, you don't have to be Indian for that. Like that's like you,
yeah, but no, but I think there are different cultural things that are much more
sure.
loosened.
Yes.
Um, but it's like moving to France. Why are you leaving?
Mm.
It's like, I'm not leaving you. I'm going to something, and it could have been that those conversations didn't go well. Like it could have been. And I'm the kind of person who will force a deeper, more intimate conversation. And I know that everybody's not in a
Same.
space to do that because
Same.
intimate conversations require a lot of vulnerability. Intimate conversations require an
Emotional
extraordinary,
maturity too,
well,
right?
emotional maturity, but boundaries,
Boundaries.
And so
Yes.
if you don't have super clear. I don't mean super strong boundaries. There's another little one of these videos that I did, boundaries versus barriers. Because if you're building barriers to protect yourself, you can't let the love in. It's built
Mm,
like a brick wall and the love doesn't
yeah.
come through. But if you're building, strong, clear boundaries, then people know where they are and when they're crossing them. If somebody who knows where my boundary is wants to cross my boundary, I don't have a problem slapping their hand. I don't, because like, no, there's no question about where that line is. Um, you know, you've just done something aggressive to me. We're very clear. And and I think that having these kinds of situations where other people might be hurt, it requires a very high level amount of boundaries and intimacy and communication skills and self-awareness. It's not a simple thing. Like
And
I don't
yeah.
know that I would go for that until I would work on myself first and then go for that, if that makes
Well, and
sense.
Heidi brings up a great point. She brings up a great point. Perhaps the collateral damage is caused when
Mhm.
people are unwilling to give up their image of you and what you should be. And
Yes.
I think if you don't settle, if that
Mm-hmm.
becomes like sort of
Mm-hmm.
your thing that you do in life, there will
Mm-hmm.
there will be some form of collateral damage because
Yeah,
there are going to be people out there who will not give up that image of you or what they think you should be. It just
absolutely.
is.
Absolutely. This is another thing in the clarity course we go through, feedback loops. Like if I tell you, this is who I am, then you can come back and say, oh, no, 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 I want you to be this. You know, for instance, um, I want you to be a good little Hindu girl. And then you're going to come back to me and say, oh, but no, I tried that. I didn't like it. And I'm moving on to something else. And I can come back and say, no, 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 you have to be a good little Hindu girl. You know, and that's, maybe a ridiculous example, but it's like
No, it's a great example.
there's this exchange between us that's like, I see it like a, a crazy eight loop of I'm telling you who I am, you're telling you you want different. So I'll tell you who I am and you tell me you want something different. If we can't get to the point where I tell you who I am and you acknowledge who I am, I got nothing.
Mm,
Right? Like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
telling you, this is who I am. Like, you can want me to be a giraffe all day long, but if I'm a goldfish, I'm a goldfish. And you're
Mm,
allowed to be disappointed that I'm not a giraffe, but I'm a goldfish. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, this is
yeah.
that feedback loop. And this is where that responsibility for teaching people who you are, responsibility for expressing yourself in a way that people understand who you are. Like that's the thing that's so important. And to your point, Heidi, Teresa, that the people who can't be with that, maybe they don't deserve your company.
Mm,
They can have your love, but they don't deserve your company.
right.
So I mean, we can go down a whole other conversation of deserving again. So, whew, thank you for that, taking us down that path. That was fun.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I do want to acknowledge we are at 7:59. We've been here for an hour already. And so I want to acknowledge that we've reached our hour. And it has been absolutely delightful talking with you. So I don't know if
Thank you.
there's,
Likewise. I hope everyone here has gained something from it. Thank you for being here on a Saturday.
yes,
Colleen, thank you. This conversation could happen for more hours, right? It's just such a deep topic. Um, but hopefully everyone walked away with a little nugget
I
of
hope
something that they're
so.
gonna do. Yeah.
I hope so. And we will post this in the That's Perspective YouTube channel. It's our plan and our goal to do more of these more often so that we can, get this information out into the world. We want to change the way people are thinking. If you saw anything here that makes you more curious about the Clarity course, there's information about that as well. And you can go to that'sperspective.com and check that out. And with that, I'm going to call this a wrap. Thank you all so very much for joining
Thank
us, and we
you.
hope to see
Thank
you
you.
again.
Thank you.
Bye bye.